Well, hello and welcome again. Today to our ninth conversation in our discussions about the phrase from the Our Father, Adveniat regnum tuum, thy kingdom come, right here, right now. Today we are very fortunate to have as our guest Father Paul Paris, the presiding priest at the Greek Orthodox Cathedral of the Holy Trinity. Orthodox. Let's take just a moment to talk about the Western Church, the Eastern Church, the Orthodox, and the Roman Church. In the year 1054 AD occurred what is often referred to as the Great Schism, or the Great Schism, some pronounce that. Two major items were at stake in that part of the history of the Christian Church. Remember, there was no Reformation or anything in 1054. There was one Christian Church. It circled around two items, the first being papal authority. The Roman Church insisted that, in fact, the Pope has authority over the entire Christian Church, East and West. The Eastern Church did not agree with that. They thought that, in fact, their leaders were in charge of their part of the church. Pope could be in charge of the Western or Roman part. This led to great consternation, and eventually, in 1054, that would be the end, and the two separate branches of Christianity would go their separate ways. The two items, papal authority, and the other item, which is interesting, was a theological dispute over the word filioque. Some of you may remember that when we talked about the Nicene Creed, we discussed this notion of filioque. Filioque means "and the Son." Orthodox tradition said that in the Nicene Creed, or what would be the Nicene Creed, in fact, the Holy Spirit would proceed from the Father. The Western Church had introduced the idea of proceeds from the Father and the Son, filioque. This led to great consternation as well, and is sort of the second item in the break in the Great Schism. One of the things that I think you'll find very interesting right off from the beginning with our discussion with Father Paul is that he, in fact, is a priest who is the son of a Greek Orthodox priest. Interesting. Yes, within the Orthodox communities, there is no celibacy requirement, no prohibition against marriage. And in fact, that issue will not even really show up in the Roman Church until 1123, 1139, with the two Lateran councils in which celibacy was decreed and enforced. So that 1054 occurs obviously quite a while before that, more than 100 years. Interesting. So as a consequence, even though the Roman clergy was required to be celibate, this was not so in the East. I think you'll enjoy Father Paul's discussion of the notion of being married. Also, imagine yourself, and some of you may well be in this position. I've been in this position myself. You have to move for your job. Maybe you work for an organization that says, okay, you're going to go from here to there now. You have to pack up the whole family, all of your belongings. Off you go to an entirely different place. Whoa. All right. The Catholic clergy does not have to worry about packing up the whole family and going somewhere else. He has to pack his suitcase and he's gone. Maybe his collection of DVDs, who knows. In the Eastern Church, of course, as would be in many businesses in our own day, you have to be ready to pack it all up and go somewhere else. You are no longer an autonomous figure as you are as a Catholic priest. I thought that was kind of interesting. Another thing I would like you to watch out for. Father Paul mentions that the prayers, the words of the prayers before every sacrament begin with this phrase: "Blessed is the kingdom of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit." Blessed is the kingdom. Adveniat regnum tuum. Thy kingdom come right here, right now. Every one of the sacraments begins with the notion of the kingdom of heaven right here and right now. That's really absolutely wonderful. Also notice that Father Paul will talk about his work with various councils of churches. When he was stationed, for instance, as you will hear, in Minneapolis, he belonged to the Minneapolis Council of Churches, whose motto, as you will, logo was "Unite to Serve." Unite to serve. Remember our discussions about the common good. Unite to serve. Also, a very tragic accident took place while he was in Minneapolis, and he will talk about that. That was shaking for him and for the entire community. I think you will appreciate what he has to say about that. So, without further ado, wait, one more thing. I can't forget to tell you this. You will notice when we get to the interview portion of our discussion today, our conversation today, the two interview people become extremely red, almost magenta. What happened? Well, Father Paul allowed us to film this piece inside the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity in front of the iconostasis. Beautiful. The church is an absolutely lovely, lovely church. However, the carpeting is red and the stained glass windows are red with a tint of blue. So what the camera picked up, of course, was a very red, pinkish, almost magenta color with the two people involved in the interview. That's what happened. I don't think that'll be a bother once we become accustomed to that just at the beginning. Well, let's do this. Without further ado, let me introduce to you Father Paul Paris, Greek Orthodox priest of the Cathedral, the Orthodox Cathedral of the Holy Trinity. Well, as we begin this, talking about the notion of the kingdom of heaven here and now, tell us a little bit about your background, who you are. And, the majority of people who will be watching this will probably be the Western Church. And so your story will be absolutely fascinating to many of them.
Okay.
It's
Well,
certainly to me as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I do come from a family where my father was a priest.
Now, this is really interesting. Okay? and the participants are going to want to hear this. His father was a priest. He then is a priest following in his father's tradition.
Yeah, so there's 5 kids, and my brother Jim and I, in fact, it's even in a newspaper column that was done on my dad because, in fact, I remember the title was Pastry Taster Peacemaker, because they did an article on him for the Greek festival in Oakland, California.
Sure, well, fantastic.
Pastry Taster Peacemaker.
I like that idea a lot.
In the course of the thing, which he had framed it, I think it was even in the office of the church, it was pretty funny. And it says, neither one of my 2 sons there's 3 sons, but my little brother was sick, and has decided to follow my footsteps. Well, like we were saying earlier, the Lord laughs at things like that.
Yeah,
so my brother
absolutely.
and I are both priests. My brother serves a parish now. We both have served in different places. And he is in Clearwater, Florida, at a Holy Trinity also.
Oh, really?
And
Okay,
I am here at Holy Trinity in Portland, Oregon.
Wow.
So we got both coasts covered.
Perfect. How long have you been at Holy Trinity?
I've been here a little over 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
And prior to that?
So prior to that, if you go backwards, we had spent 8 years in Minneapolis, Minnesota before here. Before that, we were in Santa Barbara, California, beautiful. Absolutely, St. Barbara's in Santa Barbara. I recommend you check out the mosaics there if you ever get a chance. San Antonio Creek Road. Then we were in Los Angeles on Pico and Normandy at St. Sophia Cathedral for just shy of 7 years.
Wow.
Before that, we were in Dunlap, California, a little place on the way to Kings Canyon, off of Kings Canyon Highway up to the sequoias, the giant sequoias there. And it's a retreat center and a monastery, and absolutely beautiful too. So my wife and I were working together at this retreat center. I was the youth director for the diocese then. I'd met her briefly up here in Portland, coming up to a winter camp. We were starting to work together there. Things went really well. In fact, the nuns there and the bishop were all trying to fix my wife and I up.
Of course.
And we were in the same office, and the ledge on my desk was kind of high, so I'd have to stand up to see Stephanie over there. And the bishop was very, trying to be very, and he says, Paul, knock that down and get a better look at Stephanie. He
Yeah.
says. It wasn't shocking about it at all.
Very
Not
good.
subtle. That's the word I'm looking for. He was not at all subtle. But anyway, she turned out, I guess she liked me a little bit. So
Apparently so, yes.
So we did get married, and 4 kids later. So we did a whole circuit, and we ended up here in Portland, where we were married.
Mm-hmm.
And a cute story is there's a wonderful priest that was serving in Seattle when I first got ordained. And I had said to the bishop back then, who became a metropolitan, our metropolis, metropolitan, right?
Sure.
Of San Francisco, I said, Your Grace, if you're considering where to send me, my wife is from the Pacific Northwest. I really like this priest, Father John, in Seattle. He goes, that was the thought, but now I'm sending you to LA.
Instead of that,
And
go to Los Angeles.
Yeah, and so I served my time, all this, and then about 20 years later, I end up here, and who hands me the keys but that priest that was in Seattle at the time? He had been filling in
No.
as the interim.
Oh my goodness.
He hands me the keys to this place, so it was really interesting.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, and it's interesting.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, and it's interesting being married and getting reassigned, because you got schools.
Yeah.
I had one friend, his wife was pregnant, and the bishop says, "You're moving." And she says, So it's very different than what your Catholic friends probably go through with their Catholic priests go through. But
Quite a bit.
they have their struggles too. So
yes.
it's just different. That's all.
Do they ever?
So things you probably wouldn't think about as a Catholic with married clergy. So yeah, that's a little bit of who I am in the kingdom there.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, speaking of the kingdom of heaven, the notion that we've built this series of interviews on as we were talking is the notion of Jesus, that the kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God, taking this out of the Our Father, thy kingdom come, right here, right now. Not down the road, not somewhere else, some other time. No, it's right here and now. This is the kingdom of heaven. This is the kingdom of God. How do you see that play out in your life as an Orthodox priest?
It's just, we were saying earlier, it's just a beautiful way of looking at things. And I was mentioning that in every sacrament of the church, we start with blessed is the kingdom of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So you start with the end in mind. And so everything is focused on heaven. And then everything that we do here on earth, it's a way of looking at it and say, it's what I'm doing now, allowing me to get closer to God, to get closer to His kingdom. If it's not, then maybe we need to rethink what we're doing. So it's a matter of, the sacraments of the church, the prayers of the church, orient us and basically prioritize us. So it's really lovely. And we were talking about how we find that common good in everything, and which helps us to step into the kingdom. And I was expressing that when I was in Minnesota, the stint that we did there, I served with a number of clergy groups and interfaith groups,
Yes.
downtown clergy faith group, the Greater Minneapolis Council of Churches, whose motto was United to Serve, which, again, common good. We can put aside any theological differences, but come together to serve the common good.
Yes.
In the Minnesota Council of Churches, which I served as well, the core mission statement had to really focused on the common good.
Yeah.
And we had that terrible accident with the 35W bridge going down.
Yes.
And in our parish, we had this lovely lady, Christina, who was on her way to church that night when the bridge went down. She died on her way to church, which just broke our hearts.
Sure.
And the Minnesota Council of Churches, they got together and brought all the faiths together in a common prayer. And what struck me was that a bridge collapsed, but a spiritual bridge uniting us all
Yes.
came together, and it solidified us as faith groups, because we all felt the same thing, and we all wanted to pray. We had different ways of praying, perhaps, but we could all wrap our arms around each other in that moment.
Yes.
And it was a very powerful thing. So that brought the kingdom present. It was difficult, but it was also something that was very unifying. So we put aside the differences for something like that. So you have to look at the brighter side of it.
Well, and you bring up the notion of the common good. One of the things in these interviews that I've asked each of the participants,
how do you see the common good? What does that mean to you, and how do you see that playing in your life and in the role that you have as a priest in this beautiful cathedral?
Yeah, so I think we want to do to be of service in the cathedral. The idea is the cathedral should be a beacon of light, right? So we want to involve our people into the sacramental life of the church so they get closer to God. But well, no but, I guess, but and. And as they do that, to come into service, they can take, that faith and we celebrate the cross today, right? So,
Yes.
The cross, the Lord is stretched out on the cross, and when you think about it, that cross is, if you go like this, right, you can embrace. And the prayers actually talk about embracing the cross,
Yes.
reverencing the cross, kissing the cross. And so the cross, in a sense, can be this bridge, can be that which helps us to embrace one another in love. And sometimes that means through the struggles, which the cross represents too.
Yes.
Right? Because the cross is a victory over death. The cross is the tree that, brings us back from the tree where everything started. It's the new tree, which is now the tree of life, right? So, and it's a symbol of victory. So, those things are, our faith extends into the world. I was in a church one time when I was serving, I was living in Burbank, California. And in fact, we just drove through there on the way dropping my kids off at school in Arizona, but we happened to take her out through there, and we were showing my daughter where she was born in Burbank and everything. And I said, there's a little church I went to one time, and I remembered it because I went for a little workshop, and the back door said, as you exit the back door, it said, you're now entering the mission field. I thought that was the cutest thing. It was, I forget what denomination it was, but I like that, I like that, and to remind you that, the church is just not the walls, the church is the people of God called together, right? It's Tia, right? So it's the Greek, right? We're called by God, and we're called to what that little expression, the love in your heart wasn't put there to stay. Love isn't love if you give it away. I always like that one too.
Sure.
So we go forth and we try to do things for the common good. So, but as we do those things, it helps us too. And I know you've talked to, I'm sure you've talked to many volunteers. You volunteered yourself, and you go to do things for people, and who's getting more out of it? You are.
Absolutely.
You know.
One of the people that I interviewed a few weeks ago is an educator, and she said that she learned vastly more as a teacher than her students ever imagined learning. Because you have to know the stuff if you're going to be able to do that. And
That's the best way to learn stuff.
I think that's very indicative of so many things in our lives, and especially from what you're saying right here about how would this play out in your life.
Right.
Well,
what's the take home, right?
Exactly. Where do I go from here? Am I just saying this, or do I really believe this is it? And how do I help others come to that? One of our other folks that I had interviewed is a construction supervisor, a big construction company. And I asked him what his goal was. And his goal was to be a better person so he can help others be better people. And I thought, whoa, excellent. Something we should all kind of aim toward. And we have to do it together. I think we really have to do it together. Well, realizing, of course, your father was a priest, what was the passion behind your deciding to follow this way of life?
Yeah, like I said, my brother and I didn't really think that we'd ever do that.
That was fascinating too.
Yeah, I mean, you watch what's going on, and you're like, so it's not a, what's the right word? It's not a, like you watch a movie and you get enamored by, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not, kind of a whimsical, that would be really beautiful to be a priest.
Romanticized.
Yeah, it's not a romanticized, thank you, it's not a romanticized version, when you see the kind of the dirty aspects of it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know if I want to do that, But not that it wasn't a good life, I don't want to say that, but you saw where it was tough.
You do. You absolutely.
You saw where the rubber hit the road, and you're like, I don't know if I can do that. But like we said, the Lord has other plans for us. I think I got to a point in my life, like I think probably most young people do, where they start to try to figure out how to make the faith their own. If they start to kind of think about that and say, do I really believe this? Is this my deal, or is it my parents' deal? Is it what I was, you know what I mean? And you're going to college, you're starting college, and you're getting all kinds of points of view, you're seeing all kinds of things, and you start to get philosophical. And unfortunately, sometimes you're philosophical, but you also don't follow through very well because you're young and not mature enough, and so you might make some mistakes along the way and that kind of thing. And when they kind of did that kind of stuff too, I was trying to figure it all out, and but eventually I came to a point where I had taken some time off of school and was working at a restaurant, and just was thinking about it some more, and I said, if I really, the thing that hit me, and I guess it goes back to the common good thing, I got on this thought of well, how do I love people? Why is it that I love people? I mean, I just thought about that. Good. I started thinking about that. I was like, I don't know, 19 years old, 20. I went to seminary finally at 21. But like in that 18 to 20-year-old pocket, I was like, what's it all about? Why is it that I can love people? Where does that love come from? That was like my thing. How does that work? Really philosophically. I mean, I didn't really I wasn't very philosophical, but I was trying to figure that out. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was really
I can relate
very
to that
immature and all that and everything, but that was the thought, which is a good thought, right?
It is.
So I'm thinking, okay, well, where does that come from? Well, I guess it has to come from God, because where would that come from? But how do I really know there is a God? And if there was a God that is all
serious business.
Yeah, and if there was a God that was all loving and loved me that much, and if what we're learning about, God goes on the cross like we're celebrating today. Mm-hmm. Gosh, if you really love that, well, what does my response have to be to that?
So let's say you have the chance to sit down with Jesus, a casual conversation. He shows up in your office and sits down. What kind of conversation would you like to have with him?
Yeah, did you do all that for me? I mean, is that,
did you really have me in mind?
Yeah, is that about me? I mean, is that what? Did you? And so you're kind of blown away by that when you start to really start thinking about it. You go, well, what response does that deserve?
Absolutely. So
that means I got to be all in. It's like
Do you feel
that's what kind of did it for me. It's like
I think you're absolutely right. And do you feel as in your priestly life that you have accomplished that, and you've tried to accomplish that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, far from perfect, but that, like it says today, in the prayers. I mean, I can pull out some beautiful prayers for you.
Sure.
It really talks about just embracing the cross, and I've tried to do that in my ministry.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that same cross, and it talks about the healing power. It's very powerful for today when we have a pandemic going on and we have all these things.
Yeah.
And you put the cross before you and you just go forward.
In one of the other conversations that I had with that fellow, he was talking about the notion of picking up your cross and following Jesus. Mm-hmm. That notion of bearing your cross and whatnot. This may be a little bit too personal, but in your own life, can you go back and see places where you had to make a conscious choice to pick up this cross and to work with this?
Oh, sure, I think so. I mean, the priesthood is like that, right? You're basically following orders. So if you get assigned somewhere, you say, okay, well, here we go.
I can do this.
And you're told by the bishop, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, here we go. And, as a priest too, I mean, you're out there and you encounter a lot of different people, right? So sometimes people just are drawn to you because they see that you're a man of your clergy, and so they're going to want something, thinking that, you're going to provide it.
Right.
And so there's moments of conflict there, I had a really powerful story, and I didn't use it in the sermon recently, where I was driving down the street here nearby, and this young man was having some kind of issue, and he was walking across the street, and I was in the left turn lane, and he just all of a sudden focused on me and came up to the side of my car, and as the light was changing, and I was stuck because he was holding onto the side of my car. So I had to get out of my car in traffic, leave my car in the left-hand turn lane, go off to the sidewalk and try to take care of this kid who was having an episode. And I don't know how old he was, maybe he was about 19. And he was really just, I don't even know how to describe how he was behaving, and he kind of wouldn't let me go. And, people are driving by, nobody was really stopping to help me.
Sure, yeah, you were really on your own here.
And finally, a couple ladies with a young gal, 2 ladies with a young girl. I don't know what the relationship was between them and the girl, but
Meanwhile, your car is still parked.
my car was in the left turn lane in the traffic. And these ladies actually stopped to help me with this young girl, and the one lady was keen enough to say, "Would you like me to move your car?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because the boy was holding on to me.
Pretty nice right there.
And it was interesting to see, and I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have stopped either if I saw what was going on the side, because by the time you figure out what's going on, you've already passed. And then,
Yes.
well, I can't really circle
down.
back. It's dangerous if I try to turn around. We've all done that, right? Yeah. But I was just telling the story about how intense this was with this kid and what finally happened, and the paramedics came, and it was a long story, being too long for the video. But and that was an encounter because I think he saw the caller.
Probably so.
And we have people that come here and they want stuff, and sometimes, I'm better than others, because sometimes I get frustrated, because I've been doing this a long time, and, you can only sometimes hear, I need gas, I need this, I need that, and usually I'm pretty good. I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Every once in a while I get a little fussy with people, and I think you talk to different priests, they'll have different kind of ways about how they deal with certain things like that. But in general, we try at least to give a loving response and pray for people. But it can be, the poor, because I think we started talking a little bit about we're the poor.
Well,
So we have that whole dynamic of, you got people on the streets asking you. And,
Sure.
Like I said, I've lived all different places. I've seen a lot of schemes, I've been taken advantage of, where they've even kind of big stings, even, the church would have been stung before, because you tend to try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
You do.
So there's that. But then, the poor, there's a lot of ways to see, who's poor. I think that boy that we tried to help that day could be considered poor. So those are things, because as a priest, there are some quagmires that we get into. And
Well, that's
it's
true.
hard
And
to
as
know.
you mentioned, there will be people who will try to do their best to take advantage of it for their own welfare or whatever, not for the genuine common good, for instance. Well,
There's plenty of people that we can help, and plenty of, and there are those who are sincerely grateful
yes,
for the smallest things.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you were to look at your life, and it has been a long and very eventful life in the service of the church and the people of God, what would you designate, just in your own mind, as the real good that you have done?
Yeah, I think I've tried to be in the moment with people. I think I really try to do that. I will respond sometimes when they haven't found anybody else. I could think of times where, I was just exhausted and ready to go home to sleep, and well, there's one night, and I was like, I got 2 phone calls, emergency phone calls. Oh my gosh!
Oh my gosh!
After I was just done, and you go and you do it. And,
Absolutely.
So I've tried to be faithful. Obviously, like I said, we're not perfect, but I've tried to be faithful. I think I try to be present with people. I try to be a good pastor. I try to listen. I try to, really have relationships with our people. Give them some time, and not
Listening
not,
is huge.
Yeah, I hope, people feel that way. I mean, I try to really care for them.
Well, now you are in a unique position in relationship to the Roman Church in having children of your own. What would you hope for your own children as they go on with their lives and things that you do and have done and will do for them? What are your hopes for those children? And then I realize that they are older now; they're not little guys anymore. Well, you got 7-year-old.
Yeah, I've got a 7th grader. Yeah.
7th
He's
grader.
the youngest.
Excuse me. Yeah,
That's okay. Yeah. What do I hope? Well, I'm really enjoying watching them right now because they're all involved in the church and doing things for the common. They really have a nice eye for that.
For the common good.
Yeah, they really do.
Oh,
It's really a lovely thing to watch.
Can you give me an example?
They're just good about helping out. They do a lot. They've been doing a lot of things at church because they want to, not because
Yes, gotta do this.
they've been organizing a lot of youth events and things like that. My daughter's been volunteering and organizing. My son, when COVID started, he was still in high school. This is the one that's now a sophomore at Grand Canyon University. We were talking and we were saying it'd be nice to do something for the high school kids during COVID. So he started like a podcast with another boy from church, and they started doing it, and he has continued to do it all the way through, and he's through his first year of college, and he's still doing it. It keeps morphing, and he's reaching I think thousands of people right now with his buddies.
Excellent.
Yeah, they have I think like 9,000 followers or something.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's just sharing the faith.
Yeah.
And then he's involved with church stuff. So they're all kind of service-minded, and really, they're also, I think, just good at being there for people.
Yeah.
Which really makes me happy.
It would. Absolutely.
Yeah, it really
So.
makes me happy.
How do you hope that these next years of your life go? What are your hopes and dreams for the next number of years?
Well, I want to do well by the cathedral here. I've got a lot of hopes and dreams for the cathedral. We're sitting here right now. We just finished a major renovation.
It's absolutely beautiful. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. We're excited about it. We got some more work to do.
It's beautiful.
But more than making the church beautiful, we want to, build the ministries. We want to. I'd like to see us do more outreach in the community, and how Portland needs a lift up right now. It really needs a lift up, and I hope that we can be part of that.
Oh, good. That's excellent. That's really wonderful. If you could go back and start over again, are there some things you would hope to do differently than you have done?
Well, I think we all think about that, right? But I've always kind of gone full circle with that and said, it wouldn't be good to change anything.
Really true.
Because here we are, and no, it wouldn't. We just want to learn from the successes and from the failures.
Yeah, absolutely. And the things that have transpired as a result of your decisions already to this point.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to change anything.
Excellent.
It's kind of like one of those shows where they go back in time and they mess up the time.
Yes, yeah.
So you don't want to do that.
You have something in years of work and dedication that you put in that you're particularly proud of, and not only proud of, but really proud of that you had accomplished.
Well, I think there's a lot of things. I've sort of been, God uses us. I mean, He puts us in places, and I think, I guess it just goes back to what I think I was trying to say before, just trying to be faithful, because I've been put in a lot of situations where the timing was just right for me to come in and do something. So I've tried to be present. I've tried to listen to what is God telling me to do here. Why did I land here? What is it He wants me to accomplish? And that's kind of what I've done. I've been a good sort of a bridge priest coming in times of difficulty and trying to help things kind of get more peaceful. And that kind of thing.
That's a fantastic mission all of its own.
Yeah, I've come in, most of the situations that I've been in have been rebuilding situations, getting the ship back on course,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Well, from all that I see and can understand, you've done a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
excellent.
Well, you know, it's we're our own worst critics, but
We are.
you know, I got a lot of things, hopes and dreams for here now where I've been planted.
Good.
And there was one fellow that I met along the way. He worked with Billy Graham, and he wrote a book, and the title of the book was Turtle on a Fence Post. And he asked us, you know, how does a turtle get on the fence post? And he says, well, if he doesn't, somebody has to put him
Somebody
there.
has to do it. Somebody's got to do that. What a great vision.
Yeah.
Interesting thought.
So, you know, we're all just turtles on fence
Yeah, perhaps
posts.
we're all
and
turtles
we're
on fence
placed
posts.
someplace, so why has God placed us here?
Well, that's very good.
Yeah.
Well, this has been terrific. I can't tell you how much I've appreciated talking with you. Do you have any comments that you want to make other than what's been said so far? Questions?
No, I just want to say this is very nice that you're doing this, and I think it's a lovely way to kind of delve into the faith. And just like, you know, when I said, you know, looked at the question and said, okay, I didn't have to worry about which ecumenical council or which book of scripture or whatever. I
Exactly,
didn't have to do any studying for this, you know. Or that you're going to ask me a question and go, duh, I don't know, what year was that or something. So, you know, I can contemplate going,
We try to avoid as much of that as
which
we
book of
can.
the Bible comes after that book? What are the Ten Commandments? You know, I get trapped on this.
This is
Yeah,
wonderful.
so yeah, no, this was nice, and it's a nice way to look into the people's faith and to share with one another to get at some of the core values of the faith.
That's excellent.
Why we're here. Yeah.
Well, this is an unfair question, of course, but coming out of the Orthodox tradition, and myself coming out of the Roman tradition, do you see a place in there that does not need to be contentious, but instead is full of joy and hope?
Between the two churches?
Yes.
Oh, I think we have to be always approaching one another.
Perfect.
There's got to be that.
Well, as you may recollect, Pope John Paul II, he would refer to the fact that we have to breathe with both lungs. We can't just breathe.
Yeah, I like that.
We
yeah,
have to breathe
yeah,
with both
yeah, I thought that was nice.
And if we don't, the body is what suffers.
Yeah, yeah.
And we really need to do that.
Right.
Well, I thank you immensely for taking this time and sharing yourself with us, with your mission, with your beautiful cathedral, and your hopes and dreams. Thank you so much for doing that.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
God bless you.
And we'll do it again.
One of the things that Father Paul mentioned in this, as you may recollect, is that the cathedral, he's talking about his cathedral, but really any cathedral or church, the cathedral should be a beacon of light. It should be a beacon of light. And remember his story about the little church in Burbank, when you were going out the exit above the door, were the words, you are now entering the mission field. Yes, absolutely lovely. And that's, in fact, exactly how he sees the role and the mission of the priests and of the church within our world. Also, I thought it was wonderful, his joy in his children and the role that they are playing in the ongoing process of his priesthood and of their own lives. Finally, note the quote from St. Pope John Paul II. He was a marvelous artist himself and had a very broad view of, in fact, Christianity and the different East and West churches. And his phrase that I thought was just wonderful and have consistently thought so is that we, these two churches, we must breathe with two lungs. We cannot just breathe with one lung. It takes all of the Christian community, in fact, to really be the united word of Jesus. Thy kingdom come. Well, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and I thank Father Paul again. Next time we meet will be our 10th and final conversation in this series, Advenia Regnum Tuum. Until then, blessings always.